The Bloody Podcassacre with Zac Walters and Kennedy Catherine.
I'm Kennedy Catherine.
I'm Zac Walters.
And this is the Bloody Podcassacre.
New look.
New year, same mistakes, under a different logo.
This is still the same year, Kennedy.
How's your week been?
Hectic.
Samesies.
Because we are both prepping for holiday time.
Mm-hmm.
Work has been crazy because everyone wants to also prep for holiday time.
Yes.
And it's just been nonstop going. But I am officially now off the clock for 17 days.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I am very excited.
As you should be. It's a great feeling. You know what a weird part of my week has been? That I went viral on Supernatural Twitter, a show that I do not even watch. Have you caught any of that?
Okay, so I saw when you tweeted, you quote tweeted it because somebody downloaded your TikTok and posted it to Twitter. How did you find it?
Oh, let me tell you.
Tell me this whole story because I was going to text you about it.
And I was so overwhelmed, I could not talk about it.
I'm surprised that you even knew that it was about Supernatural.
I posted this TikTok months ago. Basically, I was telling a story about how I was on a beach visiting my parents and my dad was talking to a stranger on the beach. And my dad said to the stranger, "That's my daughter. She's visiting us this weekend. Last weekend, she was out of town visiting her girlfriend because she's a lesbian," which is a true story. And the punchline to the joke was, "Yeah, Dean, and you're a diabetic with a heart problem. Let's relax on the details."
Great TikTok.
Thank you. It did well. And it did well months ago. And then suddenly I noticed that I was getting a couple notifications for it here and there, but I wasn't super paying attention. And then I started noticing that this name kept coming up. POV, you're Claire Novak. And is this Claire Novak?
So, when you say they were popping up, were they showing up in your TikTok notifications as people duetting them? Or...
Just comments. I have this problem where I am chronically compared to looking like every blonde woman alive. I did not know who Claire Novak was. And I didn't realize it was a character. I thought it was a person.
Right.
I just saw
a
blonde.
too.
Right. I just saw a blonde lady. And then I replied to one of the videos basically saying one of the comments basically saying will I ever know peace? I'm compared to every blonde woman ever. And then the comments kept happening. And I replied back to one of them and said,
"Who is Claire?"
Seriously, I said, "Okay, I've gotten a number of these comments in the last few days. What is happening?" And she said, "You're going viral on Twitter." So I just went to Twitter and typed in Claire Novak, and the first thing that came up was my video. I'm mind blown. And the video says POV, you're Claire Novak. And then I realized that this is a character on the show Supernatural. And I guess either she is a lesbian or people want her to be a lesbian. And then her dad's name on the show is Dean?
No.
Oh.
I know that Dean Winchester.
Okay.
We're about to get fucking dragged through the mud.
I don't care. I don't watch this show.
I don't either. But the Winchester brothers, who are the main people of Supernatural, I know this much. One of them is named Dean.
Okay.
In my mind, Claire is one of their friends, maybe a love interest for Dean. But no, it can't be. Dean doesn't have children. They're 20-some.
Well, somebody posted a video and I thought he looked way too young to be her dad. But then everyone was losing their mind they were saying that they kept thinking that I was cosplaying it, talking about my dad being supportive of me being a lesbian. And that at the very end, when I said he's a diabetic with a heart problem, everyone lost their shit and they thought that it was about the show because apparently Dean is a diabetic with a heart problem. But it has nothing. It's my life.
And you're Kennedy, not Claire. Okay,
Seriously?
So I typed in Dean and Claire, and the first thing that popped up was fanfic. So let's hope it's not with her father. But there is a whole Wikipedia page on the Winchesters, because I do know that their name is Winchester. Sam and Dean encountered a young Claire when 4 demons attacked the Novak family and attempted to rescue Claire and her mother before Castiel took back control over Claire's father, Jimmy Novak, and saved them. In season 10, oh my god.
There's 10 seasons.
There's more.
Jesus. I got so many comments being if you want to invest 15 years of your life, and I'm like, babe, I'm not going to invest 5 minutes.
I'm doing none of it.
I turned the notifications off of those tweets.
And the video.
Yeah.
You muted Claire Novak. You muted Dean.
I sure did. I super appreciate all the attention and everyone is very sweet, but I don't give a shit.
But we do give a shit about you if you are listening.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody has been so nice that it almost made me want to watch the show. And everybody has been
I'm going to be honest. I've tried.
I have too, I think.
I've watched the first episode about 3 times.
Yep.
And if some woman burns on the ceiling, I think it's their mother. That is it.
Also, something with more than 3 seasons with 10 episodes each.
Out. Absolutely out.
I'm never doing it. So that was just a really weird thing.
I went into that original tweet
where
you quoted it and saw that you were like, lol, this is me. And then they were like, oh my God, we love you, Claire Novak lookalike. And I was like, ooh, what?
I know, I keep getting comments being like, you're Claire, like it's too late now. I'm like, no, I'm just me. And my dad's name is Dean and he is a diabetic with a heart problem. Leave us alone.
Yes. Dean in the show is a fictional character.
Right.
Who in the supernatural probably can get rid of those things real quick.
So many people were commenting being like, that can't be his real name. I was like, Dean?
You're
my
like, Dean?
father who's 60?
You're like, Dean is a
fairly common name. Dean Cain, the original Superman. Bringing it back to Black Christmas because Margot Kidder, who played Barb, was the original Lois Lane.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And have we said what movie we're doing?
Black Christmas.
The original, 1974. So I saw the original. Nope. I saw the remake first because it was on Crave, which here in Canada is our newest like HBO Max essentially.
Yeah.
And so I watched it last Christmas, the original. I keep saying the original.
The remake.
The 2019 remake.
Because there's also a 2006 remake.
Which I've never seen. So I watched the 2019 one last year. For what it is, I was like, it's fine. The 2019 one, I was like, there was nothing exciting about it. So then watching this, I was expecting that same thing. And I hated it. I just like, I know that this is like a loved movie.
It is iconic.
But literally for what?
First of all, okay, it was groundbreaking for its time.
Right. Which I get, because watching it through a 2021 perspective, I thought it was too slow. It was too boring to what we have come to know. You know, I can see how this would have been groundbreaking. Mm-hmm. But watching it now for the first time...
They tackled abortion, which is still crazy to me. That they not only talked about it, but they talked about it in a way where it was like a woman's empowered choice. It's crazy to me that these things existed then. Like, that's a pretty groundbreaking thing to have in a movie in 1974.
I'm not saying that it's not groundbreaking. I'm just saying that the story itself...
You didn't like it.
I just thought it was too slow. The pacing, just in like the story in general, wasn't great. I didn't care for any of the characters.
I love Barb.
Honestly, couldn't tell you.
The drunk sorority sister who was wearing the choker.
Okay, yes.
Who's the funny
darker haired one?
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
She is also the one who went on probably to be the most famous of all of them outside of Olivia Hussey, but she was more famous before for Romeo and Juliet. I do think that this movie is sort of comparable to like a Nightmare on Elm Street or a Halloween, where modern audiences would not really be super entertained by them, but we know that they are sort of a blueprint in a way that makes them respectable.
Yeah.
Do you want to get into the plot before we really...
Yeah.
An unseen man climbs into an attic through the window of a sorority house where a small but loud Christmas party is happening. The house phone rings and our main star, Jess, answers to find a man on the other end. This isn't the first time he's called, making sexually explicit statements while maniacally laughing. The other girls listen as the caller rants in strange voices. Barb, the brash and drunk sorority sister, insults the caller, who in turn promises to kill her. Late that evening, the intruder suffocates one of the girls, Claire Harrison, with a plastic bag and moves her body into the attic. The next day, Jess explains to her boyfriend that she's pregnant and planning to get an abortion, which angers him, leaving them only to agree to discuss it later. At the same time, Mr. Harrison, the father of the girl who's been killed, reports her missing. Mr. Harrison and some of the girls begin a search for his daughter. Meanwhile, the house mother discovers her body, and the killer kills her next. Jess answers another obscene phone call and decides to file a report with the police, only for her boyfriend to come and surprise her at the house as she tries. He attempts to persuade her into marriage, but she refuses and reaffirms her decision to have an abortion. He leaves angrily while a lieutenant arrives to bug the phone. After the police leave, the killer murders Barb next. Jess experiences another unnerving phone call in where the killer recites her argument with her boyfriend. The lieutenant calls to say the attempt to trace the call failed, and theorizes that her boyfriend could be responsible. She gets another call where the killer alludes to some sort of transgression between two children named Agnes and Billy. The call is long enough to be traced, and Jess is instructed to leave the house immediately, as the calls are coming from inside the house. Concerned for the others, she ventures upstairs, where she discovers their bodies. The killer appears and Jess locks herself in the cellar, only for her boyfriend to appear outside the window. He smashes it and enters the basement. The police arrive and hear Jess screaming. They discover her barely conscious in the basement with the bloody body of her boyfriend next to her. Believing that he was the killer, they put Jess to bed in her room and leave her alone in the house with a cop standing outside. The killer's voice is heard from the attic, and we know now that he is still alive. The still undiscovered bodies of Claire and the house mother are seen through the attic window before the house's telephone begins to ring. And that's the end of it.
I just saw a tweet.
Tell me about it.
Where it just says, this has got to be the wildest tattoo I've seen in a minute. Snoopy is in the background.
Yeah.
And Gumby is in the car.
I don't know what any of that means.
Gumby is in a car driving.
Who's Gumby?
You don't know who Gumby is? The
No.
green thing?
From what?
Gumby.
Baby, I don't know what you're talking about. I have never seen that cucumber-looking motherfucker in my life.
You've never seen Gumby? I'm
Is it like it's a kid's show?
And it was like toys. So it's just Snoopy, but Gumby is
Oh.
who was shot in the head.
Oh my god. Gumby is JFK.
Yes.
Who is Jackie Onassis?
Pokey. And then Snoopy has bullets.
So it's basically saying that Snoopy assassinated Gumby. What a digression we just took. That's how much you care about Black Christmas.
Yeah.
The first holiday horror film ever. Put some respect on its motherfucking name.
I don't love Christmas horror movies. Name one good one.
Krampus. Tell me. No, I'm going to start actually. Just to talk about how iconic this film is. This was the first holiday film ever.
Correct.
It is one of the first slasher films.
Mm-hmm.
It also inspired John Carpenter to do the first person point of view in Halloween. Bob Clark was the director of this. Mm-hmm. Here's a direct quote from Bob himself that I think you will find interesting, Zach.
Will I?
I hope so.
Okay.
After I made Black Christmas, John Carpenter asked if I was going to do a sequel, but I said, no, I don't intend to. I'm not here to make horror films. I'm using horror films to get myself established. If I was going to do one, though, I would do a movie a year later where the killer escapes from an asylum on Halloween, and I would call it Halloween.
So it gave him the idea.
Yes.
Interesting. So John Carpenter, you are a fraud.
A fraud and a fake and a fooler.
And guess what? Good for you for making that cash.
I mean, that's the gig and the gig, so.
I know. Like, why couldn't we do that? Why doesn't someone come whisper in our ear some movie plot that I can use?
I feel like we've brainstormed at least 20 and we are not
right.
doing them.
You're right. Because guess what? Making movies, hard.
It is, actually.
And I don't want to do it. The energy is...
You've done your time.
I've done my due diligence. That's that. Did you have something else with that? Sorry, because I feel like I cut you off.
No, I just thought that you would think it was cool that this movie, I don't think gets well, I don't really know. I don't really have great context for how many people know about, think about, enjoy this movie. Like years ago when I first started in radio, there was this day where I was working on like a whole bunch of production stuff, which is mostly data entry. And I just typed into Google vintage horror movies. And this was before full movies were taken off YouTube.
Right.
And there was this huge playlist of full movies that had been uploaded to YouTube. And Black Christmas was one of them. And I watched it that day and I immediately loved it. And it has been one of my like comfort horror movies ever since. I put it on all the time because I found it in such like a strange way. I have no context of like how people enjoy it. But it is so funny to me that it is the basis for this huge movie that everybody knows.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, I don't even know. I was just expecting so much more. Mm-hmm. And I think I probably hyped myself up too much because I had seen a remake version. That one was like pretty graphic, but that one ended weird. I'm pretty sure the 2019 one had to do with like a boys' cult on campus. I can't remember now how that movie ended. I'm pretty sure like the girls in the sorority went to this like underground place. Were fighting the men.
Okay.
I'm surprised you haven't seen the 2019 one.
I tried to find it. I couldn't find it on my TV. Is it still on Crave?
That's the last time I saw it.
I tried to watch it before this, but I couldn't find it.
Oh my god, the 2019 one has 39% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, this movie does fairly well, actually, ratings-wise on Rotten Tomatoes.
It does now.
Yeah.
So originally, when this movie had come out, it didn't do well critically, but it did make like 6 times its original budget.
Mm-hmm.
So it did well, but like critically not well. And then slowly over the years, it did get this huge like cult classic response, and which is why I think people love it so much. Going through it on Reddit, which is kind of like my favorite like opinions place.
Me too.
You get like some good long form sometimes, where Twitter it's so short and I don't care for threads. So on Reddit though, I was going through so many of like, I usually type in like the movie we're doing, the year, because we have our different remakes, and then just Reddit and kind of see what pops up. And so I pick like the first like 5 usually, and it is just like everybody being like, can't believe I've waited this long to watch Black Christmas. Everybody loves it online. There was one where it was like, I don't see the hype in Black Christmas.
And you were like, same, bestie.
I was like, me too.
So
but then
true.
people were like, well, because it's like this cement piece. And I think we've had this conversation multiple times where it's like, just because it's the first. Did we not have this conversation?
I think we've talked, like, it's kind of what I was saying about like Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff. Like, when something is the foundation, the formula hasn't been set. So while it is like an integral part of it or a key element, it hasn't developed into the thing that we've come to know and love. It's just the first version, and the first version of anything is rarely the best.
Yeah.
I feel like the only reason I'm disappointed in you not enjoying it is now like I can't nerd out about the things that I loved because you didn't enjoy them.
But you can, because there will be people who enjoy them.
True. I do think that there was this juxtaposition in this movie of how sort of graphic it was in the language, but yet there was no gore, there's no impact shots at all, which I found interesting.
There was like 2, I would say. In my mind, like when I say impactful, the like quick close-up shot of the
and
one
like
with
the bag.
Yeah.
Right. I mean impact shot as in like we don't actually ever see anyone get hit or killed.
Oh, okay.
I found that to be interesting. Oh man, I have so many thoughts rolling in my head. 2, first of all. Or I mean 1, first of all. Not 2 at the same time. How did you feel about the performances?
Bad.
That is one thing I will agree with. I did listen to a review from someone who was saying that they loved the performances and the acting in this film. I think that that is debatable at best.
The characters, the way that they're written is very like what I picture like people of that time to be. But at the same time, once again, a bunch of old actors. And I just felt like their stories were like...
There just wasn't much to it? Like there wasn't enough meat on the bone for you or what?
I think so.
Okay.
I just wanted something to like grasp my attention.
Grasp your attention.
Yes. And like pull me into this movie, and I couldn't find a moment where I was like, oh, that's a lie. I completely just lied through my teeth. I did like the first like 5 minutes. The first like opening scene where we're getting like the first person who is about to die.
Yeah.
Up until after that, I loved that part. I loved walking through as like the first person, and I loved all the characters coming together, leaving. There's one who's going upstairs to change, like that, where it was continuously moving. And I was really kind of actually hoping that that was going to be the whole movie in that style. But then we like completely broke off from that like style for a little bit and went to like a bunch of different characters. And I was just like, oh, I wish we would have stayed in this lane instead of making it like a 4-lane highway.
I can see what you're saying with that.
So, and I did like the way that it was filmed. Like the zoom in shots, and I liked the coloring. So I did like that. But after that, like, first death, I was kind of out.
I like Olivia Hussey as an actress, the main girl who played Jess. My God, there is a couple times where her overacting makes me want to die. It's because, like, she does voice acting, but not face acting. Like, there's a point where she's on the phone. She's like, hello? Hello? But, like, she's not doing anything. And it feels so ridiculous.
One thing I noticed, I don't know if it was maybe just like the version of the movie I was watching, like if it was a re-release, like, when they put out 20th anniversary.
Right.
Sometimes the sound didn't match their mouths. Like the voiceover, I don't know if they redid some bits or like...
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
The version I watched, I was like, what is happening
That's
here?
always so distracting.
Because then once you notice it once, you notice it every single other time.
Yeah.
And that's like, I was watching this TV show the other day. The car scenes where they're driving, like there's a group of characters.
In the background?
Yeah. It was never awful before in the show, but all of a sudden it was like, you can tell that that's just a scream. Painful to watch. And every time they get into the car, I'm like, skip. I have to skip ahead. I don't care what they're talking about.
What show is it?
Titans.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
It's like Teen Titans, but it's HBO's and like Netflix's. They share it.
Oh, okay.
Live action version, but it's like a R-rated.
When you said I noticed, I couldn't help but think of it's just like the year of realizing things.
Wow. That is old.
That is old. I'm old. We're all old. Yeah.
When was the year of realizing things?
I think it was 2019.
Little did we know 2020 was the year of realizing things.
It has really been the 2 years of realizing things. Okay. Yeah, that's all fair. My other question. I actually listened to a therapist talk about what is potentially happening in this movie. And basically the therapist was like, there's no basis for any real underlying condition here unless they're obviously trying to communicate that this person might have
BPD, borderline personality disorder?
No, dissociative, which was previously known as multiple personalities.
Right.
But you get absolutely no context for what is going on with this person, which is very scary.
Yes.
It really oscillates between like this sexual, like serial rapist kind of vibe to like a Norman Bates almost feeling type of thing. And I think that comes from the true crime story that this is based off.
I think so. One thing that I do want to like commend this movie for is I know that you kind of briefly talked about it with like being able to like talk about like abortion freely, is that this movie was like no like real sexualization of women through like the eyes of men.
Very true.
There's no graphic killings of women other than just like the bag, that one scene.
It's a really good note, actually.
There is like, you know, you have your like stereotypical like the virgin, the overall like women in this movie, great. Their story arcs,
lackluster.
Yes.
There's no like, for lack of a better term, bimbification.
Yes. And also it does pass the Bechdel test. 2 women in a movie who they are named characters, have a conversation with each other that is not about a man. There's also, I think, there's 3 parts of the criteria. They have names, they have conversations that aren't about men in the movie. I can't remember what the third thing is. There's 3 parts to it. Anyways, it does pass the Bechdel test. I do commend that because 1974...
Also, that was like when all slasher films started coming out, and all it was naked women getting their clothes cut off and they're running around with their tits out.
Amen.
Amen.
Do you know what I also realized watching this movie? I feel like the women portrayed in this movie are very your type. So I was like, I can see why Kennedy likes this.
Barb is like everything that I strive to be, but also everything that like I love about women. Just a brash, give no fucks, take no names, take no prisoners, take all of the names. What is this saying?
We're gonna take all the prisoners, we're gonna kill them all, and we're gonna be brash.
There we go.
That's it.
That's it.
That is a recipe for Kennedy.
Yeah, that's really all. That's what I'm about.
We're gonna
slash tires, take names. Like I don't know what the fuck.
We're gonna kick butt, take names. What is the saying? And I don't want to Google it because I just want it to come to us. Kicking butt and taking names. Is that what it is?
Sure. Yes.
Kicking ass and taking names. I don't know. So we have sidetracked a bit, but you were mentioning that there is some true crime aspects in which inspired this movie. And there's also some like folklore stories that kind of
the stranger or like the babysitter and the man upstairs
that played inspiration, I think, to the making of this movie. I'll start with a folklore story. So the collar inside the house is a very old urban legend, which was something that came before the use and birth of 911. But so in this legend, it was with a babysitter and a homeowner. They were trying to reach out to the operator because you had to call an operator. Do you remember that?
Yes, when you had to call 411.
Yes. You had to call an operator to figure out where a call was coming from. You didn't have call display. You didn't have anything.
Did you not use to star 67?
I don't think I ever did. I think that I always had call display. There's the story of the babysitter and the man upstairs. A teenage babysitter is trying to figure out who is calling her while she is home alone babysitting for some people. And she's harassed by a series of phone calls made by a psychotic killer. So the police and the phone company try to warn the girl. And then they find out that the calls are coming from inside the house. it's kind of like that story in urban legend. I don't know if urban legend is actually the right word because I don't think it happened to a bunch of people where...
That's what urban legend is, though. It's an untrue story, like, that's usually comes up from, like...
during storytelling, like, in generations.
Mm-hmm.
But would that constitute...
That is what an urban legend is, yeah.
Interesting.
This is not a true story.
No, I know. But I'm trying to think of, like...
Like, the killer clown in The Babysitter would be considered an urban legend.
True. Okay, you're right.
Thank you.
I don't know what I'm thinking of, that I'm, like...
It's okay. You're having
crossing two lines somewhere.
You're having a brain meld.
Because guess what? It has been nonstop go for 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? After this, I'm leaving. The Babysitter and The Man Upstairs was also made into a short film prior to Black Christmas being made, which was by Terrence Winkless in 1971 that came out.
Classic Terrence Winkle.
The good old Winkle family. The short film did also inspire our good old boy Bobby.
Just for a little fun fact.
Mm-hmm.
This was directed by Bob Clark, but it was written by Roy Moore. I don't know if he's from the city that we live in, but I know his sweet, sweet nephew who lives here, which is a weird connection.
It's always weird when you're like a degree.
Mm-hmm.
What is that saying that you're like...
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon? 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon?
Is that what it is?
That was the game.
But you're 7 degrees away from like...
everybody.
Yeah. Which is gross to think about.
I know.
So, that was the urban legend.
Right.
Then there is the idea that Black Christmas was inspired by real life murders.
Mm-hmm.
So, in Canada during the holiday season in Montreal, Quebec,
mm-hmm.
there was a serial killer by the name of Wayne Bowden who
classic fucking Wayne. I know this story very well. It's horrible.
Killed 3 women in Montreal between October 1969 and January 1970. And his 4th victim was a woman in Calgary, Alberta in May of 1971. And he was known as the vampire rapist, which I do not like. He was, after his 4th victim, he was apprehended soon after and was sentenced to a 4-life term for every woman, and then died in 26 at the age of 58, I believe, in custody.
Yes.
This whole scenario, I don't know more about that, like the details of the killings, but Bob Clark in a Q&A said that there was no real inspiration for like, or one thing that came from the film concept. The only thing that inspired him was this like series of murders in Montreal.
I thought that there was also something about a young boy who killed his parents.
Oh, I don't have that one. I have also, in 1978, 4 years after the movie had been released, NBC had planned on putting this movie on TV.
Mm-hmm.
So they were going to put it under the title of Stranger in the House. So in January of 1978, 2 female students at the Florida State University were murdered by an assailant who broke into the sorority house where they lived. And then 3 younger other women in the immediate vicinity were attacked and assaulted. Mm-hmm. So people started asking for the movie not to be played because, you know, it was too close to home. People were like not comfortable watching something like that on TV during the time. So NBC did decide to push it back, and they played it May 14th of the same year. Mm. But do you know who the person was who was the one who murdered the 2 people in the sorority house? Ted Bundy.
Fuck.
Mm-hmm. So Ted Bundy made this movie not go on TV in January of 1978. So those were the 2 like killing related stories that I had.
I just Googled it and I can't find anything of what I was talking about. I'm so certain that I read something, but I could be wrong.
One other thing, so that when I found out it's Canadian, is through Reddit. Mm-hmm. This movie was filmed in Toronto at the University of Toronto's campus residence.
Yes.
So somebody posted, I can't remember their username, I should have saved it, but they posted that they lived in the residence where the movie was filmed. And one of the things that they do is an initiation for first years during orientation week is they put them in a dark room and play the movie.
Ooh.
And so partway through, an older student snuck in an old phone in the back of the room and rang it.
I would shit.
So the person said that the screams in that room were so blood-curdling that nobody slept that night or for the rest of the week.
Oh my God.
Isn't that great, though?
That is.
What a great little story. if I was ever put in that situation, I'd be like, absolutely am I not watching a movie in the location where, like, this is based off of. I could never do that. That's like going and watching As Above, So Below in the Paris Catacombs.
Well, that's like, I don't know if you saw it, but they did that event a couple years ago where they played Jaws on like a...
Yeah.
In the water.
I did see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would fucking never
It's like watching
do
the Titanic on
a
cruise
boat.
Ship.
Oh, no.
You know? Like, why would you ever want to do that
I would
to yourself?
Never. I actually watched like a little documentary that they made, little like made for TV special about this movie, probably like 30 years after it came out. It's probably early 2000s of like the cast and the crew going back to the residence where it was shot, and they kind of walked through
for
it.
Black Christmas?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they walked through.
In my mind, I was on Titanic still.
Yeah, they went down to the Titanic and they walked through the residence of the Titanic.
The two that were live.
It was actually pretty neat. It was cool to see. But I have to be completely honest, that special was so goddamn boring. It kind of reminds me of the story of The Omen, where the people who were making it, it's not like they were super passionate about the story. It's not like they were really... Like, it was a passion project, like a film they really wanted to make. It was because at the time, horror was a lucrative genre, which is crazy to think about because it's sort of like the black sheep of film where there's no real money in it.
No. There's no awards. There's no nothing for it. Right.
And so he just knew that this was going to, he would get his name out there and he would maybe make some money. And that was kind of that.
Crazy.
There were some big people actually slated to be in this movie. And the cast is still, fine. But not some of the people like Gilda Radner, who was one of the like original SNL alum, was supposed to be in it.
One thing though, that like reunion specials...
They're always lame.
They're always lame because it's like you're expecting a new part of the story, but it's just people talking about the story 20 years later.
Yeah.
Like, example, the Harry Potter one's coming out on New Year's Day.
Yeah.
And like I'm excited to watch it just to like see them all back together. But I saw that one image and I'm like, great. I just need to see a photo of them all together.
All you need.
Yes, I don't want to know what are they gonna have to talk about.
Honestly, you'll get the highlights on Twitter and like you could probably call it a day.
If they're not talking about J.K. Rowling and her awfulness as a human,
I don't know how you'd be able to avoid that. They kind of have to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, a lot of them have denounced her on Twitter.
Yeah, as you should.
So the only other thing that I want to talk about, it's like just one quick thing, is so the person who played Billy, the Nick Mancuso, I believe is his name, in order for him to get his proper and like creepy raspy voice, he decided to stand on his head and compress his thorax and his neck so that he could get the voice.
Jesus!
It's like one of those, it's another on that list of things that we love to talk about where it's like, why do people put themselves through this thing to make art?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, you couldn't just...
Go like...
and this is couldn't grudge it up.
This is why we're not doing horror voice acting.
This is why you and I are not successful, because we are not willing to do the work.
Handstands.
No.
Nor do I know how to do one.
I wish there was more to say, but it's kind of just like a cut and dry... little tidy film. I like it. I love it. I recommend it.
I don't.
And that's that on that. You want to rate it?
Yeah.
Scary. The first time I watched it, I was a woman living alone. Scared the shit out of me, I won't lie.
Fair.
Secondary watch, like a 1.
Yeah, I was going to say a 1 or like a 0 for me.
Unsettling. His voice kind of gets me.
There's like parts of it, like the whole like concept of it, somebody constantly like just like killing people in your house.
That's pretty spook.
Yeah.
Ooh, I saw a bunch of people in a Reddit thread being like, why would she ever go upstairs once the cops called and said that the call was coming from inside the house? I'm sorry. I understand that logic. If I was in a house with my closest best friends and I got a call saying there was a killer in the house, I really don't think my instinct would be to run out of the house away from my friends. Like, I'm thinking in the context of the house that I live in. I live with one of my best friends who I've been best friends with for over 10 years. It would be super weird if I got a call being like, there's a killer in your house, and I just walked out the front door and wasn't like, hey, homie, there's a killer in the house.
But, like, I think in that situation, they are saying probably you tell your friends.
She couldn't. How is she going to tell them? She's downstairs and she's not trying to create a scene.
And then you just casually walk up to them.
But they were dead. Story.
Did we rate?
Unsettling?
We did not give it a number.
I'm going to go with like a 4.
I'm going to say 2.
Sick.
Story.
My heart is saying 7 for no reason. So
okay. Absolutely not for me.
No, probably more like a 5.
Okay. You're like, actually, probably a 10.
Is it a paper cut or is it a bloody massacre?
A paper cut. Not even for me, honestly.
It's one plastic bag over the head for me.
That is good. I think that we should add in like a new thing to rate, like originality, because guess what? That's a 10.
Okay. On a scale of 1 to originality, it is original.
It is the original.
We hope you guys had the greatest Christmas or whatever you celebrate.
Does this come out after Christmas?
Yeah, it comes out the 29th. Hope you have a fantastic New Year. Because we'll see you in the new year.
Yes, 2022.
Thanks for coming on this journey with us, y'all.
Yes, we just celebrated our 1 year. Throw that in there at the last minute.
You know where to find us. At Podcassacre on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. You can leave us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. Until next time.
This sort of Christmas is one you don't dream of.